Call the meeting to order. We'll start with a flag salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll say thank you for the guest and for the people out there watching tonight. We have no translation needs, I see, so we'll go on to approval of the agenda. We need a motion for the approval.
I motion to approve the agenda.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So carried. Okay, we'll go on to, do we have any public comment tonight? Okay. We do not have any recognition tonight. We'll go on to board member discussion. I do not have a legislative report tonight. Do any other board members have anything else to bring up?
I had a question on our calendar. Are we supposed to go to the events on August 15th, 16th, and 17th? I don't think so, but
Those are the district summit days,
yeah.
and so those are intended to be professional learning opportunities for our employees.
Okay.
Certainly, the board would be welcome at those, but they're not designed for board members.
Okay. Just wanted, I didn't want to decline on my calendar if it wasn't. Okay.
Okay, next we'll go on to student representative reports. First of all, I would like to welcome Sebastian to the board tonight. If I could get you to speak a little bit, tell us about yourself and
All right, testing. So my name is Sebastián Serrano Avelar, and I'm currently a freshman attending Othello High School. I'm very excited to be here with you guys, and I will do my best to my ability to serve the school district with wellness. Thank you.
okay. Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you.
We'll go on with student representative reports now.
Okay, so it was our last week of school this week. Today was a really fun day. We had a field day, which was just basically chucking water at each other, and I was soaked. My pants were soaked. Luckily, though, they told us to bring a pair of clothes to change in, so that was good. It was very hot out today, so they also wanted us to bring water. I brought water. And lots of sunscreen. It was very, very hot outside. Very, very hot. Tomorrow is a really, really short day. It's kind of just a day to say your farewells. I mean, we get out at like 11:10, so it's crazy. But, yeah, it's kind of sad to say goodbye to sophomore year, but now I'm an upperclassman. So that's a little fun. And, yeah, last meeting as a sophomore. Exciting.
Okay,
Love.
thank you. We will go on to required approvals. Do I have a motion for the required approvals?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion on it? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so carried. Accounts payable warrants 2.
I motion we pay accounts payable warrants too.
Approve.
I
Or
second.
second.
And I will be abstaining from this vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. We will go on to superintendent informational items.
Yeah, on the annual calendar, you'll note that there's an opportunity for the school district and the superintendent specifically to provide an update about annual goals that have been established by the board in partnership with superintendent's office. I do want, before we jump into the presentation, want to take a moment to recognize Sebastian and his presence tonight. I think it's an example of goals that were set by previous boards to really value student voice and set up structures and systems that allow us to interact with students consistently. So look forward to him being part of the board and sharing his voice and adding his contributions to what's been, I think, a very successful board goal. And so looking forward to working with you, Sebastian. The superintendent goals, I've shared a couple of times with the board around this concept about organizational learning and what's happening across our system. There it should be mentioned that the conversation we've had this year in preparation for strategic planning, that's been work that we've been waiting for a couple of years to get launched, certainly disrupted by the pandemic and some transition in the system. But we're really looking forward to this next school year, engaging with not only our community and our employees, but also our students about a student-centered strategic plan that will really encompass and take the place of those bulleted items that you see in that top right corner. What do we really believe in? What experiences do we want for Sebastian and for Jaden and other students so that they learn the things they need to learn to be successful when they leave Othello High School? This week in particular has been a good reminder through promotion, through graduation of really that this system K-12 that we set up to launch kids into the next part of their life and how important our work is. And the strategic plan will help guide that work. Now, this idea about feedback, tonight is me providing some feedback on how the year's gone. You'll hear some information about individual school sites and some ideas about what we might be working on next school year. All of these will be presented in this concept around nested goals. Again, you have identified goals for me as the superintendent, and you have your own board goals that you're working on and developing and thinking about. Those board goals should also be influenced by what comes out of the strategic planning process, and what then our school sites developing their own goals around those concepts as well, and we get the outcomes that our students and families deserve. This last school year, Assistant Superintendent Shank and I had an opportunity to kick off the school year at Orientation Day in August, and we identified some priorities across the system focused on this concept around belonging, but that we were really going to think about feedback, our multilingual learners, and our professional learning communities across the school district. I'm going to talk about the superintendent goals as it relates to these four concepts or ideas. I also want to remind the board that last year when we kicked off the school year, we also let folks know sort of this back to basics year, reset the system. There won't be much change next year either. We're going to stay in this lane, stay on these priorities, develop some metrics that fit into these categories, and think about the next move we need to make in each of those areas. But there won't be a lot new, and so I hope that the staff that are listening, I know Jessica and I, as we've partnered around these concepts and preparing for next school year, it's going to be another opportunity for us to not do more, but to do better. That will be the idea. Although this wasn't one of the goals that was approved by the board or that lives in our agendas each week when we get together, it still continues to be a goal for me and for the teaching and learning team to be in schools as much as we can. All with the idea of supporting the buildings on site and also contributing to the coherence and us understanding what's happening at schools, so that when they ask for something or are unable to identify the next step, we have enough context and understanding about what's happening at the school site. So that continues to be a goal for me and for the teaching and learning team, to be on site and to be in schools. The board goals, if you'll remember, were around our professional learning communities, so you can see that tie into that being a focus area for the school district. Accountability measures and increasing student engagement, that also happens in our PLCs. It's also a significant component around feedback, and that will drive our strategic planning process. What goals, specific outcomes are we looking for? And certainly our multilingual learners are represented in those accountability measures. Many of those students continue to struggle to find success, and we continue to struggle to find the best ways to meet their needs. And then lastly, providing oversight about the implementation of a strategic plan. And for this year, it was just introducing folks to that concept, developing the partnership with Dr. Campbell, and then I think July 17th is really our next significant engagement with her about what's next around that process. So this idea about these four concepts that we've been sharing with our administrators and across the system, Instructional leadership, understanding what's happening in classrooms day to day, that's the core function for our building principals. And we know that at certain sites, the systems exist that they're able to do that more frequently and more often. And others, we continue to work with them on developing systems that will allow them to do that. But bottom line, we want to develop principals and assistant principals that are able to be in classrooms frequently, watching students and staff at work, and supporting the work, giving us that information and feedback so that we can help them be more efficient and effective in what they're doing. Now, around multilingual learners, what have we done this year? There's been a district committee led by David Spencer with representation from each of the schools working on a plan for what's the next best move for our staff and our students around multilingual education. We've also been able to receive the WIDA exam results and process those as a school district to determine how those students perform on that language assessment, but also not forgetting that the rigors of the Smarter Balanced Assessment and other assessments that students like Jaden and Sebastian have to take at the high school, that those kids are ready for those assessments. At Ludwikaga in particular, there's been a focus on teacher meetings, and we know that we're going to have a transition there in leadership with our principal and assistant principal. So it's going to be important that we pay attention to hanging on to the systems that have been effective and useful at Ludwikaga, but also developing new ones with the new principal and assistant principal there. But that focus on biliteracy and what that means for students at Ludwikaga as a school of choice, that might be a little different than our other 3 elementary schools. Now, professional learning communities. Early this year, Assistant Superintendent Schenk distributed a survey to our teachers to develop an understanding about their viewpoint about the effectiveness of their professional learning communities. And then we ran a similar survey in the last few weeks to be able to gauge whether or not we've made progress in that area. And so what did the results tell us? We have a lot more work to do there. That's why professional learning communities will continue to be a priority for us. There'll be training this summer around that concept. Certainly talking with our administrators, having them dig into the data that they have about teacher perceptions will be an important part of what we do this summer. Structurally, we're going to hang on to some of those things, continuing to use common agendas for consistent experience for staff. We're looking to expand opportunities for vertical engagement. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were able to partner with McFarland and our elementary schools, 6th and 7th. We typically have this transition for students to move up. This was the first time that I can remember where we had 7th grade teachers go down to the 6th grade and spend a day there talking about what was happening in elementary schools. They visited each of the schools. And it was good feedback not only for the elementaries, but also for the middle school to understand the kinds of students they were coming their way. So a professional learning community, it isn't just what happens on Monday, right? It happens every day in schools that are functioning at a high level. At Othello High School, we were really proud of the partnership between OHS and DOHS and their tiered system to not only give kids the opportunities that they need to be successful, but also for kids to transition back and forth if that's something that works for them. Principal Tovar and Principal Kat Atchison, they've been able to continue to refine that partnership to think about the experiences that kids have in classrooms so they're more similar than different at each of those sites. I hope that those of you who were able to attend the OHS and DOHS graduation got a flavor for what those schools are about and that they have some unique characteristics, but that this idea about teaching and learning is consistent at both schools. Now, around feedback, Jessica and I worked on a podcast this last week with David Spencer to provide an update around some of these areas. And one of the things that we were very transparent about in that conversation was we made a commitment to be in classrooms more often. And at some schools we were able to do that, and at others we weren't. So our responsibility is to think about how do we help those principals who struggled to meet those goals next year. So the goals won't change. We won't back off of that. We know that it works, and we've seen it work at some of our sites. It's us thinking about how do we make it work at every site. So we're going to continue to press on this concept around instructional feedback. Again, this ties into our opportunities to be in schools more often ourselves to give feedback to the principals about the work they're engaged in.
Can I ask a quick question, Pete?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I know like you had specific goals around this. Putting that into action, how did you find that went? Like, were you bogged down with lots of things at the district office, or were you able to get in the way that what you wanted to?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things I've come to believe about being the superintendent, and it's something I heard early on in my superintendent training, superintendents rarely told no. They're told no by the board from time to time, but rarely by the staff. So if I want to prioritize my time to be in schools, I can. Marisa and I have developed a really effective system that has allowed me to meet and exceed that goal to be in schools. Made it a priority for me. What I know that some of our principals are struggling with is their ability to make that a priority for them. And each of the schools are at different places. And so it's not from a lack of willingness or a lack of skill. It's a combination of those things. And for me, meeting that goal about being in classrooms, I think I have a strong understanding of what each principal might need. And so then how do Jessica and I fill that gap for them? We only do that by being present in where they're working. So we've been able to be out there more. There's some transition in the teaching and learning team that Jessica and I have partnered around. So we think that team will be even more efficient and effective next year, trying to be responsive to what we're hearing from staff about the kind of support they need. But absolutely have been able to meet that goal at the district level.
Great.
One piece about that I will work on for myself next year, and I'll share this with the administrators in the coming days when I model an experience for them about reflecting on your own practice. They asked me last year for more consistent written feedback from me. So not only being present and helping them talk through the work, but actually providing written feedback around what we talked about and if we make commitments that those are memorialized in meeting notes and those kinds of things. That's not something I did a great job with this year. So that might be something that we add to the system next year. At Scootney, another opportunity for the school district to have a transition. Denise Marich, who has certainly been there and been heavily engaged in the work around feedback at Scootney Springs. We're excited for maintaining some of the momentum there, but also the new voice of leadership that Denise will bring to the table. And Eliza Fish, who we recently hired as her assistant principal, will have to get up to speed on what data meetings look like at Scootney. We don't want to lose any momentum there. So we're looking forward to continuing that work at Scootney. Now, what's interesting about Scootney and Hiawatha, their structures are just a little bit different than what's the staff and admin experience at Wahidas. And we've been careful in letting principals have some autonomy in how they're working through these feedback activities. But at the end, we're looking for outcomes. Did we get more adult learning, and did we get more student learning out of that? In the strategic planning metrics will help us identify that and categorize that across the system. Right now we can pick and choose some things. Well, how'd they do in Smarter Balanced? How'd they do on the WIDA? How'd they do on this thing? Strategic planning will help the principals identify those priorities based on the metrics we've picked, and then they'll have some autonomy in picking the strategies they want to use. All of those strategies, those metrics, and those goals will be developed by everyone in that strategic planning process. So if I was thinking about what I just shared there, there's a lot of motion in the system. We need to get where it's action-oriented. This action will lead to this outcome. So people are working very hard across the system. Students are working hard, staff, they're working really hard. It's about getting coherent and taking that motion and making it forward momentum. I think I've showed you a couple times a schoolhouse with all the arrows. There's a lot of arrows, and we've blocked some, and I think we have a lot of them going in the right direction. And next year we'll ramp that up just a little bit. At Wahidas, sort of an anomaly across the system. Principal Justin Johnson and Christina Benjamin, I think they've been in probably over 1,000 classrooms providing feedback, which is an unusual number. The process and the system that they've set up there, and it's, again, giving them autonomy to be in classrooms and doing the work that they think, that idea about chasing instructional leadership, that's how they're chasing it. And so some exciting outcomes for students and staff at Wahidas that I think should be recognized, but just a little bit different way to look at the work. Now, strategic planning, how are we going to wrap all this together? It's going to include be a student-centered plan. What do our kids need? What do our kids deserve? what skills and experiences do we want them to have when they graduate. That's a key component that I think is missing currently and has been missing for some time. So we're looking forward to bringing together all of these groups over the next several months to develop some measurable and actionable goals and to inspire folks to do better work. So I think what you should expect at this time next year, those goals and metrics, you would have adopted them in maybe March or April. And we may be in a position where we can report on sort of baseline data about how those new metrics we've identified. But really it will be the launch into the next year. Here we go. This is what our targets are. This is what we're shooting for. And I'm looking forward to really hearing the teacher input about those measurable and actionable goals, what they think those should be. And that will be what I will propose to the board as a goal for me next year around strategic planning. All of this work is coming from the viewpoint of developing teacher efficacy. So the sense that what I do as a teacher makes a difference for kids. And it's the same for principals. What I do as a principal makes a difference for teachers. What I do as a superintendent makes a difference for principals. How the board tries to support me makes a difference for me. And when you have that sense of my work matters, you tend to be more engaged and you get better outcomes. And that's not just a theory, that's what the research says. So this idea of coherence and getting all the arrows moving in the same direction, it's done with this purpose in mind. How do we make people believe that their work really makes a difference? Because when you don't believe that, then you feel comfortable with motion opposed to action. I'm coming to work every day. I'm in class every day. We're doing stuff. When I put this in front of kids, this is the outcome that I'm probably going to get, but I'm not sure. Like that sort of attitude, when you're not sure what to do, it's easy to land there. And that's just human nature. It's not that people don't want to do the work. It's what do we need to learn about as an organization. So that's what we're driving towards. Now, around student achievement, I've shared this with the board in a couple of settings, and it's something we're going to ask our principals to use in, I think there's a session scheduled in August for the building principals to provide a bit of an update about their work to the board, and that would be an open public meeting. But it really will be around this framework. And what I think is important to understand about this image is that if you're on the right-hand side and you're getting excellent outcomes, you're getting the outcomes you want for your students, that's a good place to be. And if you understand why you're doing that, that's a good place to be. That's where we want to live, in the learning and leading section. How are our multilingual learners doing? Well, they're not doing great, but do we know why? And do we know what our next move is? And is there a pocket of excellence that we can identify that we really understand deeply and we try to scale that at other schools? So this framework for understanding student achievement and what moves the adults made to ensure that kind of achievement, you'll hear more about this from our principals on the 14th of August. And so this idea about the end of the school year, not only is it a celebration, an opportunity for transition, but it's also the perfect time to gather all these feedback and think about what's next. Not what more, but what's next, what makes sense for us to take on. And so I'm excited about how the year has gone, how it's wrapped up, and looking forward to next year and doubling down on some of the things we know are effective and continuing to push on the system so that we get the goals that we have established for each other. So I certainly would welcome any questions or comments about the presentation or the school year.
Pete, I just, on slide 17, the OSD Priority Strategic Planning, just for the purpose of the public, if you can just explain eliminating district office positions, because obviously, if somebody just reads that, they might think, what's going on? But we know what's going on, but maybe if you could explain that a little bit further.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really good question. When I go back to this foundational image, and you see this piece here about feedback to the organization. Organizational learning should represent the entire system. students, staff, that should be up there. But if you wanted to replace organizational learning with district office learning, that would be what's happening with the executive team, what's Sandra learning about as it relates to human resources, what's Amy Suarez telling us about finances and the outlook across the state and in our district, what's Jessica telling me that she's hearing from principals and others in teaching and learning across the state of Washington that, hey, this is going to be a priority for OSPI. We've got it. So what are we learning about? And then how do we develop a team to support the principals in getting that work done? One of the things that we learned about this year at the preschool was not only that was TK funding going to be preserved, but I think we all heard a call there for more support for the preschool, and is there a way to expand and continue to offer those opportunities? So we adjusted our teaching and learning team and some of the responsibilities that Jennifer Garza has to focus more on that work. Jessica brings a level of expertise around STEM activities that I didn't bring to the job as assistant superintendent. Paul Auersland expressed a desire to have an experience as a building level administrator. So when Paul was applied and interviewed for that position at Ludicaga, it gave us an opportunity, that was feedback for us to say, how can we adjust the system a little bit and make it more efficient and still make it work at a high level? So we made a determination that Jessica would take over some of those responsibilities that Paul had, that John Wiseman and David Spencer would take on some additional duties. There would be some additional duties that would come to my office, and that we think that efficiency and organizational coherence would allow us to give better service to the schools. Tied to that, we should not hide the fact that there's some fiscal impact. And what are we trying to be mindful of and predict based on what we're seeing across the state? Learning for me, this is the start of my 3rd year as superintendent. You need to be thinking 2 or 3 years down the road. You can't be reacting to the next thing. So really it's an opportunity for us to begin to prepare for some of the fiscal realities that are being experienced across the state of Washington related to school district finances. And I think, but that's a piece of our decision making, but at the heart of it is how do we get better support to the buildings? And we believe that that's a way we can do it next year.
Is there any other questions or?
No, I think this is great, and I'm excited for the things that we'll talk about in August with the principals to dive even deeper into this to see, like you said, what exact path they're choosing to go forward. I've always loved is the word autonomy that you use? Yeah. So I love that, but it has also been a little bit of a frustration for some members of the board. I guess I'm not speaking for everyone, that there's autonomy because it's like if you are breeding racehorses and you know that like this feed is like every year, you know, putting out like the fastest runners, and then it's like everyone feed your horse whatever you want. This is all good feed, and it's true, it is. It's all good stuff, but sometimes it's like no, we want everyone doing the same thing, so that if we, you know, go to Hiawatha on a Tuesday, they're doing the same thing that they're doing at Scootney on a Tuesday and that kind of stuff. But I understand every principal's different, and I think that they really appreciate that about you, that you have enough belief in them that you give them the choice to say, here's a bunch of methods that can work, so whatever's going to work best at your school and with your people. So I think that's great. It's just also like, I don't know, it's hard sometimes as a board member. We're not in education, and so I see things differently sometimes. So I appreciate that you explain to us why this is the best way of doing things, because it really is. It just is frustrating at times in a good way.
Yeah, I certainly understand the frustration, and I think I understand the point of your comment. One of the challenges of leadership in working with principals in particular is the number of interactions that they have every day with adults that I may not even know. And me understanding how they're leading those folks. That's one of the changes we made this year. So you might see Jessica Schenk or me or John Wiseman at a Scootney leadership meeting, at a Hiawatha leadership meeting, at a school improvement team meeting at Ludwikaga. And one of the reasons for that is getting at what you're sharing here, which is how are they sharing their leadership voice? I know what they tell the board when they come once a year. I know what they might tell me in an admin meeting, but what are they telling the people that they're leading? And so we go and watch and we learn and we listen to what they're saying and give them feedback on the messages that they're delivering. What strategic planning will help with, Lindsay, around what you're saying is, what does the research say really works? Here are 8 things that really work. At Scootney, you can pick 2 of the 8. Wahidas, you're gonna pick 2 of the 8. So there will be some more tightness around systems, but still some autonomy to pick that. I think it gives some principals some comfort. I think there are, I'm not making a statement about our current principals, but I know principals who just want to be told what to do. That's managerial. Go manage that school. We're looking for people that really understand instruction and really understand leadership. And that's really complicated work. For me to go to a site and say, do this one thing and it'll work, the research might say that, but the person delivering the message and all the relationships that exist at that school and the history and culture of the school is really complicated. But I have been very clear with the administrators. I'm not interested in just the motion. I'm interested in action and moving things forward. So I'm looking forward to the strategic plan, providing some more press around that, and then saying, hey, what are you putting your chips on? What are you betting on? And see if they have the courage to. Jessica's working on a presentation called Call to Courage. And it takes courage to get in front of teachers and say, this is what we're doing and why, and then get them to come along with you.
Yep.
Thank you, Pete, very much for that report tonight. Very informational, a lot of information, and look forward for the next year. We'll go on to policy review. We have a bunch more of the 5,000 first readings. Could you tell us if this is the last batch of 5,000s or if we got more, a lot more to go? But they're coming, they're coming. So if you get a chance to review them before the next meeting, if you have any questions or comments. Upcoming events. First one listed there, last day of school tomorrow. Kids are probably more excited about it. It's been a good year. Then our next regular board meeting, June 26th. Is there anything else there that needs to be added, or?
Could I ask a question about the meeting on the 26th? Because
Yes.
I thought it was my understanding that there might be a board member or 2 that would not be present. Is that accurate? Or will you all be there?
I am not going to be in town. I'm going to try and join remotely.
And I will be back by then.
You will.
Yes.
There's a chance, my daughter is playing on the Little League All-Star team for the girls. Delia's is playing for the boys team. They play that day. So hopefully,
It's 2 out of 3. So if they win Saturday, Sunday, then we'll be back Monday. But it depends.
if not, I think we'll be able to, like, it's not too far away. It's in Walla Walla. So I was actually going to talk to you and say, maybe we can carpool home and go to the meeting and then head back up to All Stars. So I think we'll make it work one way or the other.
Okay, I did want to give the board a heads up that Jessica Schenk and I will be with the principals at the Association of Washington School Principals Conference in Spokane on Sunday and Monday. So I'm perfectly willing to drive back for the meeting Monday night and then go back to Spokane. Or we could have Sandra Villarreal direct the meeting and I could participate remotely. But I'll check in with Ken about that over the coming days. But I did want to give you a heads up about that Jessica and I would not be in attendance.
Or it's a possibility we can move it to the next day.
Yeah, I
too.
was going
I'm
to say,
just
should we
bringing that up.
reschedule the Tuesday?
The 27th.
Tuesday the 27th would work better for me. We just need to
Same.
get that communication out. Is that
Same.
okay?
Why don't we
Yeah.
go ahead and do that? We'll plan for.
Okay,
a
well,
meeting.
I got called to
Or-
jury duty, and I would love to get out of it, but I've gotten out of it 3/4 of the year, so I kind of have to go if they have it. But it could be canceled easily by the week before. I'll keep checking, but I'd rather be here. But I mean, I would be here, but I might be home by then. I don't know. So
Okay. So
I'm sure
we will.
Tuesday by 7.
So we're okay
think
getting
so.
an announcement
Yeah.
out that we'll be switching that
We could do
meeting
that.
to
The
Tuesday,
20
the 27th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for that.
Marisa, will you switch that in the, okay,
Calendar.
you're the best.
Sebastian, does that work for you?
Yes, it does.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any more on upcoming events? Okay, board self-assessment of the meeting.
This is the shortest meeting we've had in months, so yay for us that we have had a shortened meeting.
Can I say well-planned agenda?
I appreciate the superintendent report and goals.
Yes, very good. I love that we have a full board here, both student reps. Great to have Sebastian for his first time. Very excited.
I do have a con. I was actually looking forward to having some student recognition tonight.
Yeah.
So
I hope they can make it
I
in the
hope they can make
future
it,
at
yeah.
some time.
Yep.
I think all of our graduations and promotions and all of them, all the last 2 weeks have been excellent. And even I think all the other kindergarten ones I didn't go to, but I've heard great feedback. So hooray to all of our admin for putting all these on and everyone that works with them.
Yes.
Greg, everyone. It takes a lot to do them. I know today they were really working hard on making sure the generators worked so that they had speaker systems, and there's so much more that we don't know and people don't know, but really a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt super
Greg,
good about
oh, you
the
guys.
graduations this year.
Mm-hmm.
We just need now a little bigger field or something,
Yeah.
a few more bleachers or maybe a
But
new
yeah.
school.
Thank you for working your guts out.
Yeah, it
Moving
was-
chairs, moving bleachers,
great.
setting it all up, taking it down.
So it had nothing to do
Thank
with the
you.
meeting, but I'm just saying it, sorry.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, is that it for the self-assessment?
Yep.
Okay, at this time, the board will recess into executive session for 60 minutes to discuss the sale or lease of land and the performance of a public employee. No action will be taken following the executive session. We'll meet in Pete's office in 3 minutes.